Hello and welcome to today's video. So this time we're going to be taking a look through my vintage Badger paperbacks. These were published by John Spencer in the late 50s into the mid 1960s, and they're quite unusual. They don't really turn up nowadays, and my collection has come on quite a bit this most recent year with a little haul that was found by my friend Robert, the SF specialist dealer up in Dorset. So now, without further ado, sit back, relax, and let's take a look. Okay, then, so I'll start off with these, which is a couple of miscellaneous ones, really. This is a blazing Western. It's just an old one that somehow came my way, number 16. Pretty typical of the Badger format, in all honesty. Very, very pulpy paper. I'm not a massive fan of their paper. They do seem to be produced on the cheap, shall we say, but that's quite an early one, that one. And then this one here, which is again a bit of a miscellaneous one. It doesn't really say that it's part of any sort of series at all, really, the Lost World of the Amazon, but a bit like sort of Pound Books or Penguin, I try and pick up anything published by the publisher. Now, this one actually is, there is a copyright date of 1955, which is unusual, and it says it was first published by the Souvenir Press in London. But this is very, very clearly a Badger one there. So a couple of unusual ones there. I know there's plenty in the Trailblazing Western series. It's just not one that I've sort of tracked down many of because they're not that important to me. However, we'll go into the series which I've got a bit more of a run of now, starting not less with the romance one. So these are RS, which can only stand for romance, I would think. And this is romance number 4 and romance number 7. And a lot of the time you see with these series, it looks like one particular author has been assigned to them, in this case, D.K. Jennings, or sometimes two. So with the romance, there are a couple of authors. So yes, that's number 4 and number 7. Number 8. They've all got these covers by Fox here. And that was the other author, John Sherwood. So you'll notice that they're all very much of a particular style. I think these are being pushed out very, very swiftly. This was the only one that I'd ever picked up until, as I mentioned at the start, my friend Bob picked up some file copies. They were undistributed, and what happened, he just got a phone call completely out of the blue. He was a book dealer at the time and in the market for paperbacks. Someone said, look, this chap in London has passed away. He's got a house full of books. You need to come down with some bin bags if you want them, and pick up what you want. They have to be picked up today. And he went down, and the place was in a bit of a mess, to be honest. But it turned out to be the original, one of the original publishers of Badger books, and there was all these file copies on the shelf. So something like this is absolutely immaculate. It's unread from that particular collection. And some of the books were there in massive quantities, 10, 11 of a particular book. But through that, Bob was able to complete, because he's a science fiction specialist, he's actually got an almost perfect, he's only missing one book, an almost complete run of the science fiction and supernatural series, which I've got a fair good run of, and we'll have a look at those in a minute. But these romance ones and some of the spy ones we'll look at are from that particular collection. But that slightly tatty one there, up until Bob's find, that was the only one I'd ever seen of that, and I picked it up, 20 years ago, in a charity shop or something. So very, very scarce. But it's funny because romance, and you'll notice that a lot of these romance titles they do have an element of doctors and nurses, which seems to be quite a popular common theme. And there is a great account on Instagram called Vintage Nurse Paperbacks, and they actually show from that lady's incredible collection, a few hundred vintage romance nurse books. So here is another one which I think is probably from my original collection. But as I said, very, very unusual. And when was the last time you ever saw any? They're just not out there, and I think that goes with Badger books in general, which is why when they turn up on places like eBay, they tend to be lower grade and ridiculously overpriced, And there's my last one, which is number 40, The Midnight Wards. There we are. So that Midnight Wars is actually one that I've had a double of, and I've had it with an oversticker, a 25p oversticker, which makes me think that the series was sold right through into like the early 1970s, maybe. So anyway, that's the romance ones. Quite unusual. Now we're on to another series, which was also sort of mid 1960s. That's the spy ones, and they've got SP, which means spy, or stands for spy. And I can only think that these came about because of the sort of the spy craze of the early 60s. James Bond, moving into stuff like Man from U.N.C.L.E., getting popular, Danger Man, things like that. And there was a lot of those sorts of series around, and they certainly captured the imagination, and that's where I think Badger came along. So this is spy numbers 1 and 2. This is number 3 and number 4. I think they're really nice, these. And 5 and 6, and I don't know if there's any more past that. There's an example of one. Look, it's got a 25p sticker on over the 3 and 6, and it makes me think that these probably had a life, on the shelf, perhaps beyond what they were intending, or once again the books got remaindered. But I think the Spy series, as I said, I don't think there's much past 6, if any. It's quite a nice little run to collect those. I quite like them, and my friend Bob endorsed it, and I've done some videos on his collection. He has got some spares of these, so same with the romance ones if you're looking for them. Now we're going to another little minor sub-series, which is the war ones. Now, I don't know how many of these there were, but I don't mind picking up vintage war paperbacks. A lot of them are non-fiction. Some of them are fiction based on actual events, and this is World War number 23. It hasn't got a WW prefix. Now you'll notice that on all the early Badger books, earlier than the ones we've looked at, they are larger format. They're more akin to a digest with digest style pulpy pages rather than the more traditional paperback. So these are the earlier ones. If you see any from this sort of period, they're all pretty scarce, in all honesty. This one clearly says that World War II series number 33. And so they've got a few in that World War series here. They lived in glory. Give us this day. For a while they classed themselves as Cobra books instead. This is number 66. This is a bit more akin to a paperback now. And these are more like the traditional Badger paperbacks. This is number 89, 101, 102, 113, 142, and these were the ones I'd found sort of out in the wild, really, 149, so quite a long running series, and 150. And once again, if they're tatty like this, it probably means these are ones I found at boot sales and stuff. So there are my war ones, and it's an interesting series. You very, very rarely see them. When a war ones come my way, because they're not like science fiction or war fantasy, they're not mega collected, so they're usually offered at just £1, sometimes a lot less. So I've never turned any down, and in all my years of collecting, that's the only ones I've actually found, which makes me think they're pretty scarce, So now on to something which is much more popular, which is the supernatural ones, and of course leading into the science fiction ones as well. So this is my earliest one, Supernatural number 21, and very, very pulpy. It says Badger on the front, but John Spencer and Company on the spine. 2 shillings initially, and a lot of these were done by Lionel Fanthorpe. In fact, all of those there. So he actually has one under his own name, which is there, R.L. Fanthorpe. But then Lionel Roberts, Leo Brett, Trevor Thorpe, and Brom Fane, those are all Fanthorpe pseudonyms. And quite famously, he would sort of lie in bed sometimes, narrate an entire book onto cassette, and then his wife would actually write the stories down. So that's a fairly dodgy copy of 21. This is a much nicer copy of number 22, which is one I picked up recently from Bob. So that's much more better condition, much nicer condition there. 23, lovely cover, that one. Once again, Leo Brett. This one here, I don't think any of them are by by Fanthorpe. Possible, yeah, I don't know. I don't recognise those as being any of his pseudonyms, whereas Leo Brett definitely is. Yeah, that's another one which Peltoro there. That's one that's all done by him. And you'll notice, interestingly, this one's got a 35-cent sticker on. So this was distributed in the Americas. Now onto the more traditional Badger formats. This is number 32. Faces of Fear. Number 40. This is one which I've had for a while. I'm going to check some of these. Yeah, I was going to say, because that one, I met Lionel Fanthorpe twice. Happy to say he's still around today. And he is happy to sign copies of his books under the various pseudonyms. And I'd love to get a photo with him. And if I knew he was going to be at a particular event, I'd certainly take along a few more books to get signed nowadays. We got... this is 48 here, the Phantom ones. Well, there's another one that's signed, but the book itself is in quite a rough old state, but I'll never get rid of it because it's been signed, and he was such a nice chap when I met him. Face in the Night. That's a nice cover, isn't it? It's by Fox again, and he did some of the romance, he did some of the spy ones as well. But often they're just not dated at all, so you have to use your best guess and experience about when they were officially published. They Never Come Back. Strange, weird, eerie. Supernatural 74. As you can see, I'm missing loads of these. I think the series I'd most like to get licked would be the science fiction first, but you know, as I said, they don't really turn up. There was a run turned up in the States, and I did show it in one of my recent eBay sales auctions where a set of the science fiction had turned up, and it had gone for just under $1,000, and it was the full set. I mean, beautiful condition as well, so that was very, very nice. I think if that had been a bit better advertised, it probably would have gone for even more. The macabre ones, that's nice, isn't it? But we're still into these supernaturals at the moment. And then my biggest run, of course, is the science fiction. And then we've got a few sort of non-fiction or sort of guidebooks as well to look at the end. There have been a handful of books now written about Badger books, which we'll take a look at. Interesting on this one, it does actually say, look, monthly. And they pretty much were being published monthly with the numbering as well, making people almost be inclined to buy these on a monthly basis, you know? Certainly good for collectors trying to get them all, that's for certain. Curse of Can. This is 105. And my last supernatural one is Dark Legion 106. Once again got a cover by Fox. He must have been doing so many. There we are. This one's come from Barcelona. And there we are. It still says John Spencer as the publisher, and Badger Books with the Badger logo there on the top. Brilliant. So the next thing we need to look at is all the science fiction books. Okay, so this is my earliest one here, and it really is sort of reeks of the late 1950s, doesn't it? Destination Moon. Not in the greatest of condition, admittedly. It's very, very brittle and a bit beaten up, but it's very much of its time. And that's SF Science Fiction number 14 there. And once again, John Spencer, like the earlier ones. And that's definitely more akin to a pulp than an actual paperback. This one here is like this slight transitional period. So this is number 30. Science Fiction 30, A.J. Merrick on this one. Still the same sort of size. Now this one's, you know, traditional science fiction really, Murray Leinster. Very nice jacket on that one. I believe it was pinched from an Ace in America, in Ace Books. Badger Book Edition 1960. So that gives you a little date point there. Lionel Roberts. So this is obviously Fanthorpe again. What a great jacket that one is as well. Shame my copy's a little beaten up, but there you go. I'm not too worried. It's probably one that I've had. Yeah, it's an old one because it's been signed. When I actually met Lionel Fanthorpe, it was back in the 90s, a couple of times then. So back then I only had a handful of Badgers, probably about a dozen, because you just don't see them. And, you know, this is number 40. It's true today. How often out in the wild do you come across a book published by Badger? It really is quite unusual, isn't it? Number 45 here, Pel Toro. Another Fanthorpe pseudonym. Last Man on Earth, yep, Bromfay. Once again, very tatty old copy, this one. But signed. So, I mean, it may well be that Bob has still got a few of these, which I could take as upgrades, and I'd just keep the signed ones, like, you know, have a duplicate copy. That's always been a cover that's really attracted me. On the whole, the covers aren't that outstanding, but some of them are quite, shall we say, sensationalist. And that's a really great one. Now, that's also signed. One of the great stories Bob told me when he went to see that collection was the guy had his full run there, and one of the hottest and probably the most collectible of all the Badgers is a book called Rodent Mutation. It's got a massive rat on the front cover. In fact, I'll pop a picture of it up now. And that's probably the one to look for, and it's one I'm still after myself. The last one that came up on eBay was a bit tatty, and it was over, I think it went for £45, which is a lot. Now, that's a signed one. When Bob went to the publisher, there was 2 copies of Rodent Mutation. On the shelf, there was like a really mint one, which is the one he's still got. He said there was another copy of Rodent Mutation. I said the rest of the house was in a bit of a state. This copy of Rodent Mutation, when he picked it up, had actually been chewed by mice. So there actually was a Rodent Mutation. So there you go. But I think he's probably still picked it up, and he's probably already sold it because it's not in his stock now. But I thought that was a really funny story, that one. That's a really nice striking cover, isn't it? That one, Uranium 235. That's lovely. I think that was probably a Bob one. Orbit one, another very nice one here. So these ones which are sort of in almost like really flat exceptional copy have come from the original publisher, I think. And Bob did have a few of them signed, so that could easily be one of them, because I don't remember that one having that one for years, like, you know. That's really nice, that. Infinity Machine. X Machine. Another one signed there. Space Fury. That's a nice copy, isn't it? Look at that. It's almost like the cover artist, Fox, was given carte blanche to do whatever he liked. It's number 77. Walk Through Tomorrow. Carl Siegfried. Another Fanthorpe. So these ones here, I think they're quite readable. If it's a story that you fancy, they don't feel pulpy like the early ones did, you know. At number 80. I think I'll just pause there because we've got another big pile of SF to come. And let's dig those out now. Okay, so carrying on with number 81 here, 0 minus X. Radar Alert 83, SF 83. World of Tomorrow, this is 84. So by the look of it, the tail end ones do seem to be a little bit more common for me. That one's signed, with the ones that I've picked up. And the earlier ones, it's true, when you see the earlier ones on places like eBay, they do tend to go for about £20 to £25. That's the ones which are more traditional digest size. This is a lovely one here, The World That Never Was. Nice file copy, this one. We've got the insert inside. If only they were all like that, eh? Galaxy 666. But the last time I showed my Badger books on the channel properly was about 3 years ago, and since I've had so many since then, I thought it was worth a second look to see my collection as it stands right now in mid-2023. It'll be interesting to see where it is in another couple of years, if I've been as lucky picking up new editions or not. Certainly I'm not chasing down everyone that turns up on eBay, that's for certain, but as they come my way, I'm going to grab them, you know. It's number 92. Last Astronaut, 93, Peltoro again. Also signed. Reactor XK9 for number 96. And I guess because they've got the regular cover artists, you know, Fox, who's done so many of them, they do almost have a uniform look, and certainly the spines are very, very distinctive with their yellow on the whole. Very, very nice. Projection Infinity. This is 103. Another nice copy there, and also signed again. This is a nice one, SF111. This has obviously come from Bob's collection because it's just so mint from that little find there. Very, very nice. All the Bobs are in that condition. They're just absolutely incredible. He's only missing one. I forget the number, but he wants a mint one so it doesn't let the rest of them down. 112. And they are, you know, file copies straight from the publisher. 114. See, this sort of borders on the Spy series, doesn't it? The Girl from Tomorrow. But it's definitely science fiction. There we are. Been read a couple of times. A little bit of spine roll. Another one putting a damsel in distress on the front there, number 115, SF115. And the series is almost at an end. And the last one I've got is Phenomenon X, which is a beautiful cover. I'm sure it's been used earlier on for SF116. John Muller again. And I believe this is the last one in the series. Signed again. Now I've got a couple of other unusual ones. So this is, I think, just a one-shot, the Danny Kaye saga. It's listed as a World Personalities series, so quite unusual. Bob's got a couple of these himself. This is one that I picked up offline. It was like, you know, £3 or £4. I didn't think that was too bad. I'm not a fan myself. And I've also got a couple of American ones. Yeah, now these are published by Vega, and it says VSF, Vega Science Fiction, number 10, The Return. It's by Peltor again, so it's, they're using the original Badger jackets. It's the Science Fiction Library, so this is an American edition. Vega. Same sort of pulpy paper. They may have even, this is signed as well, they may have even been printed over here and sent to the States as an American edition. I don't know, let's have a look. See, oh no, it does say printed in America, but Vega Books, California. So that's that one, and there's another one here, which is Vega Science Fiction number 11. So we've seen both these covers on the British editions. Exactly the same format. These are, once again, straight from the publisher, so quite unusual. And they must have just been sort of samples, I guess. So I didn't want to not show you those American ones. Right, we've got a few books about Badger to look at now. So the first book we got to look through is Down the Badger Hole. Now this one's by Debbie Cross, strange, weird, eerie, and includes an introduction by David Langford. And I think the first thing of notice is the cover. So you see there's like a little pile of badgers, but it's got a copy of Rodent Mutation. That was the one I was telling you about. Leaning against the, tape recorder. It's a reel-to-reel cassette, because that's, or reel-to-reel tapes, because that's what was around back then, sort of typifying the way that the books were actually recorded. Little montage of covers on the back. We've seen some of those today, haven't we? This one's also signed by Lionel Fanthorpe and his wife Patricia, who does contribute to this. 1995. So I've got no idea how easy it would be to pick up one of these now. So we've got the introduction, a bit of history about it, excerpts from some of the stories there, and then a brand new one, Curse of the Khan, at the end, then a bibliography as well. So if we have a little flick through, it's a really fascinating book about, you know, how the stories were actually pulled together. It was the first time this had ever been sort of attempted. So here's some of the other books that they've both written. He was very, very prolific, of course. I think Fanthorpe was the editor of 14 Times, was it? I seem to recall. And I'm sure he's had some TV stuff on Channel 4 over the years as well. The motorcycling reverend, as it were. But there was, that's quite an early one, almost 30 years old now, that particular one. Now this next one came out, I believe, 2 years ago, and I did do a review at the time on the channel. It's quite big, so let me just move some of these books to get the whole thing in. So this is the second book, and this is quite something. It's an illustrated bibliography, and got this fantastic cover, and you'll have a look through in a moment. But this was always purported to be volume 1 or number 1 of a proposed 3-book series. It's by Shane Agnew, and this one looks at comics, the science fiction and the supernatural lines of Badger, and that's what he's put a little selection of there, so some of the comics, then the early sci-fi and science fiction and SF titles. Now there he is on the back there with some of his collection in the background, and we'll have a flick through. So it's very much a bibliography and checklist, so you know exactly what's what. All the authors are cross-referenced, including under their pseudonyms as well. So it's like a checklist, a bibliography, there's a checklist. Every book has got an illustrated cover on as well, so you can see them against your own collection. And nothing like this has been done for Badger, nothing this extensive. This is the work so far on the publisher. So it's got each book, all the individual stories, if it was an anthology, are listed in between, and who they were by and who the authors were, and if they were pseudonyms or not. It does give the dates when they were published, which is quite interesting. So the first supernatural one, it says 1954. So we were spot on with our timings. These are Worlds of Fantasy, which is not one that I've ever come across. They look quite SF Digest-y, don't they? World of Spaceways, Tales of Tomorrow. And these are the tail-end science fiction ones. So it looks like the last SF one that they've got is number 118. Henry Fox is that cover artist. We're saying Fox, aren't we? So yeah, I haven't quite got the last one. I've got 116 is my last one. So there's a couple more after it. Maybe they're quite scarce. But at least this way you get to see what all the ones that you haven't got look like. And I said it is a bibliographical reference if you are a paperback collector and you are collecting these. It doesn't give any idea about rarity. Interesting, there was one there that was not produced. So there's a few here, a bit like other publishers, they have numbers that don't get used. Futuristic science stories is more the digest size, which led into the paperbacks. And there we are. So that's the first one. So definitely of interest to collectors. And in 2020, so it was about 3 years ago now. So whether Shane will go on and do volumes 2 and 3, or if he's still collecting them, I don't know, but I certainly hope so, because this one is great, and I believe you can just get this one off Amazon. And I'll, if it is still available, I'll pop a link to it in the description down below, alongside the last one we're going to look at. And that's this one. So this is recently published, 2023. It's new supernatural stories, Lionel and Patricia Fanthorpe, and nice little tome, this one. Cover design by Smith & Jones. It's $15.99, and big list of all the previous stuff that they've written. And this is in the Stephen Jones Masters of Horror series. So I recently reviewed the King Kong book in this series, and which was very good. And this one is edited with a 4 by Steve, and I believe Steve is a Badger collector as well, so he's been collecting them for quite a while as well. Attracted by their weird allure, no doubt, same as me. And little 4 there, Forward, Britain's Last Pulp Writer by Stephen Jones. Then they do their own introduction, and then like a little selection of classic stories. There's an interview with Lionel Fanthorpe by Paperback Fanatic editor Justin Marriott, and then a bit about the authors. So it's done in like the mock Badger style with a yellow spine, and I think it's a real great homage to the series, and certainly a good little bookend to your Badger books collection. Definitely worth tracking down. And this is totally available, brand new now, so it's only just been published. And if you want to get a feel for the best of what Badger had to put out, then this is the one. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed my updated look through my Badger collection as it stands right now in mid-2023. Certainly enjoyed collecting this publisher when I do come across them, and certainly hoping to get some more over the next couple of years. Thanks very much for looking today. If you have enjoyed today's video, do please give it the thumbs up. Do please hit the subscribe button if you've not already for regular vintage paperback content, and I'll look forward to seeing you again very soon. Bye.